water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Hello, Mr. Films and Random here. As many of you know, Avatar: The Last Airbender recently was released on Netflix this past May. Avatar: The Last Airbender first aired on Nickelodeon, had huge success in the late 2000s, and has since made a comeback with this recent release on Netflix. I am one of those people that have since seen it for the first time this year. I gotta say, I absolutely loved it. I went back and watched it with my siblings, who they had never seen it. Just as of recording this, we just finished it tonight. So right now, I'm going to review Season 1 of The Last Airbender, and I have a Season 2 and 3 review coming out later that I'm filming right now as well. There will be spoilers for Season 1 of The Last Airbender if you have not started watching the show, or if you're on Season 1 and have not finished, so click away right now if you do not want to be spoiled. So there is absolutely a lot that I love about all of this show, but I do think that Season 1 is the weakest by quite a fair margin. Overall, there is more that I like about it, so to end things off with a high note, I'm going to go ahead and get out some things I'm a little frustrated with. So for starters, Season 1 is fairly slow moving. One of the main complaints I hear for people that are starting off The Last Airbender is that it takes a while to get into it, and I would definitely agree with that. Especially the first two episodes are by far some of the weakest in the entire series. Because Season 2 and 3 and the later half of Season 1 are so good, people tend to forget that Season 1, at least the first half, can be a little difficult to get through. And that was one of the things I experienced watching it the first time and the second time. Also, majority of Season 1 involved a lot of what I'm just going to call city hopping, where they go to one location, have an episode there, go to another location, have a lesson there, and they learn lessons along the way. And there's nothing particularly wrong with that, but I do think it can distract from the overall story. One of the praises of The Last Airbender is that the show overall has great filler episodes, and Season 1 definitely does not have a shortage of those good filler episodes, but there are a few weak points. Personally, The Great Divide is probably one of my least favorite episodes in the entire series. Also, the episode The Deserter and the Northern Air Temple, I feel like they're okay. I mean, I don't feel like any of the filler episodes are particularly bad, other than The Great Divide, which I wouldn't even say that one's bad. It's just is significantly lower than every other episode in the show. I would say more so that some of the filler episodes, they kind of distract from the main plot. There are a few episodes that I feel like could have been left out, and there was more like the creators are like, well, we need to have something here, so let's just do this. Another thing is that the humor is fairly divisive. In other words, it can be very hit or miss. Some of that is because, yeah, it was a show that aired on Nickelodeon, so of course the target audience is going to laugh at things differently than something I'd find funny. Mainly looking at Sokka's character, which Sokka is great, but I feel like most of his jokes or his humor is pretty hit or miss in Season 1, just because a lot of that does come down to the fact that the show is targeted at children and happens to be accessible to adults just because of all the great themes and stories it does have. The other issue I have is more of a nitpick, and I mean, obviously there is a reason for this, but I did find the animation in the first few episodes to be a little clunky. I feel like that probably comes down to the fact that they didn't have as much of a budget as they did later on in the show as it started to do better. First time watching Season 1, the first few episodes seemed a little clunky, and then finishing the series and then going back and restarting with my younger siblings at Season 1, I noticed a huge difference between the animation of the first two episodes versus the last few episodes of Season 3. Overall, though, those are really the only issues I have with Season 1, and everything else is basically praise. One of the things that Avatar has been praised for time and time again is its world building, which I find to be exceptional. Basically, in terms of how they handle the history and then the magic system with bending, it follows a rule: show, don't tell. And this series does a great job of following that standard, where even when we're told things, we still see examples of that. Just looking at the first episode, where we don't really know much about this world, you have Sokka and Katara in a boat. Sokka is trying to fish with a spear, and then Katara, without Sokka knowing, starts using water to get the fish out. And that's our introduction to bending. It's little moments like that you may not notice at first that follow this rule of show don't tell that make the world building so well done. And that's just one of many examples in here. Of course, another great strong point of the show, I feel like, are its characters. You have well-crafted, well-developed, likable, charismatic characters with good chemistry that you love seeing. Usually you think of a quote-unquote kids cartoon, you don't think that's going to have this kind of depth. But I mean, The Last Airbender is proof that you can have some of the best characters ever written, some of the best stories ever written in my opinion, and still have it accessible for kids. Aang, Katara, and Sokka come across as likable right off the beginning. Each of them have their own flaws that make them human, that make them relatable, and each of them grow and develop and overcome those flaws as they go along. There's also a bunch of great side characters like Jet or Haru that show up for like 1 or 2 episodes that I don't have time to mention them all, but they do add to the world, they do add to the diversity of people in this world, that you get to see different perspectives on all sides. One thing I also love is how you get a perspective of the Fire Nation, the so-called bad guys of the show, where you get to see Zuko, the Banished Prince, and then his uncle Iroh, who's a general. You get to see their perspective of things. While I do have some issues with some of the filler episodes, more filler episodes in Season 1 progress the characters than not. One of my favorite filler episodes is The Storm, in which you get to go back and explore Aang and Zuko's backstory, where you get to see Aang and why he feels all this guilt, why he feels this weight of being the Avatar, and then you also have Zuko and his tragic background with his father and why he is so obsessed with capturing Aang that turns him into an empathetic villain and sets up a great character and redemption arc that proceeds throughout the rest of the series. Episodes like that are the kind of filler episodes that TV shows need. And even though there are a few filler episodes in The Last Airbender Season 1 that I think we could have done without, there's far more that I'm so glad are in there because it really helps expand the world and the characters. Also, Zhao is a good enough villain. I wouldn't compare him to someone like Azula. He doesn't reach those heights, but he has enough charisma and intimidation that you do feel threatened when he's around. He does have a significant presence throughout the series, that you can buy him as a significant threat to, I'm just going to call them the gang, because that's what the rest of the fandom does. On top of that, I think you have one of the best season finales in all TV, with the Siege of the North, where you have all the emotional impacts, you have this epic struggle where you feel the seriousness, the threat of the conflict as the Fire Nation is on the doors of the Water Tribe. It hits all of the right notes and makes for a very satisfying season finale that leaves you wanting more, that leaves you waiting to see what happens in Season 2. So overall, while I do have a few issues with Season 1, and while I do feel like it probably is easily the weakest of the Last Airbender series, there's still a whole lot of good stuff in this, and I would definitely encourage you to go check it out if you have not seen The Last Airbender. It's on Netflix right now. Definitely go give it a watch. I will be releasing my Season 2 and Season 3 review soon, so definitely go and check out Season 1 of The Last Airbender before I get those out. This is Mr. Films are Random. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram, link down below. Hit that notification button to be notified whenever I drop new content. And once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.